Digital. Hello everyone, welcome to today's Novage webinar, Master Tips for V-Ray and SketchUp. V-Ray for SketchUp is a winner rendering solution for all artists, designers, and architects to better communicate their practice. Join us for the live session where we share some of the best tips for creating better visuals with V-Ray and SketchUp. Today's webinar presenter, architect Moshe Shemesh, is a V-Ray license instructor and director at V-Ray Israel, an official Chaos Group partner. He is the author of the new V-Ray for SketchUp ebook. Inside the book, there's pretty much all there is to know to perform amazing renderings. Stay with us for priceless V-Ray tips and for more info on how to get a hold of the book. And now let me tell you a little bit about Novage. Novage is changing the way designers purchase 3D software, offering more choices, more freedom, best advice, and faster service. Check us out at novage.com. This week we also have a special promo on Workstation because now we give you the best CAD workstation. But enough about me and Novage. I want to share Moshe's screen so he can tell you more about his book and start getting to the rendering. Moshe, you can, yeah.
Right. All right.
Okay, we can see your screen and we can see you.
Yeah, you can see me on my screen?
Yep.
All right, you can start. All right, you guys, thanks so much, Baba, for the invitation. And thank you for the lovely introduction. I'm truly excited to be here and talk to you guys from the other side of the world, where the sun isn't shining. And more or less, my name is Moshe Shemesh. I'm an architect based in Israel. I work as an architect and as a 3D artist and designer. And I basically wrote and composed the V-Ray for SketchUp ebook after, like, I don't know, 10 years that I'm practicing V-Ray for SketchUp and SketchUp. And most of it in Israel locally, but now it's the time I wanted to share my knowledge with the world. So I'm now presenting my my new V-Ray for SketchUp book, and I figured out we should make some kind of an introduction to the world by doing some kind of a webinar. And in this webinar, I'm going to teach you a few tips that I have gathered and curated in the last, I don't know, 10 years or so. And we are gonna cover as much as possible in our time frame. And the tips are both for everybody. I mean, it's for everybody, for intermediate, for expert users, for basically, it doesn't matter what is your level of expertise. You are about to get kick-ass tips. Anyway, a word about the situation all over the world. I know that, you know, USA, the whole world essentially got struck very, very hard by the COVID-19. And I'm happy that this is our way to share knowledge and globally can, you know, share experiences and basically be better at what we are doing. And I hope everybody is in their pajamas so we can start. And all right, so I prepared the document in Google Docs, and I will copy and paste it on our chat platform. Just a second. Baba, can you help me a bit? Maybe you could paste for everybody the link for the Google Doc, so everybody would have their copy.
I will in a second.
All right, so I just will start. You don't have to be on the document itself, only myself. It's better this way. So welcome to my webinar. We are about to start with some major tips, and let's go in a very short brief. So first of all, I see V-Ray as a way of communication. I mean, it's a tool. It's a powerful tool for us that once we happy and finished our like 3D model, we can go ahead and start making it looked like realistic with V-Ray, and by doing that, we basically communicating our model in a very prestigious way and very beautifully. So I see V-Ray and SketchUp as a way to communicate with other people, as a way to communicate our ideas, our designs, our products, and it's a powerful tool. And SketchUp basically lets us do everything in such an easy way. So what I teach my students is something that I call it like the Bible of a good render, which is a balance between three main components: the camera, the light, and the materials. Once you get everything balanced and looking not so bright and not so dark, and everything is put well together, so you can get a very good render. And okay, so I thought about so many tips that I got to deliver to you guys, and I essentially divided to three categories. So we will start with a few technical tips. We will move on to the artistic ones, and then we will end this webinar with some creative ones. So let's start with the first technical tips. So the first tip that I want to give you guys is that something that I was encountering with in my last project, which is still alive, and I found myself looking for electrical appliances to my render. It's a kitchen scene, as you can see. So what I did is that I was finding myself searching for something in a 3D warehouse that kind of look like what I need, but it wasn't something that it might be it's a good model but not the best one, and some compromises has been made, and essentially I was looking for a model too much time. I mean, wasted too much time on searching. So I told myself, hey, I got the skills, you got the skills, so just go ahead, take the specific model of the, I don't know, electric appliance to your, I don't know, it can be an oven, it can be a dishwasher, it can be anything that you would like. In this example, I will show you how I modeled this specific Electrolux microwave, which is, as you can see, as a built-in microwave. And what I did is to make it look like nice in V-Ray, and then I basically implemented in this scene. So this is my scene, and what I did with those two guys is to have a specific model for both of them. I mean, those two are real appliances that you can buy in the real world. And what I did is basically was to download a photo from the manufacturer with the exact number and the exact just a second, with the exact technical specs of the appliance. And then once I have a good picture of the final product, all I had to do is just drag it into V-Ray SketchUp. Just a second, I need to do it in one shot. So once I had this this image, all I had to do is just put it everywhere I want in the model, and just make some adjustments and work this image as with rectangles and offsets, and make the model look like in the real world. I took all of the sizes were like available for me in the internet, so I just followed those exact dimensions, and all I had to do is just when I'm importing an image to V-Ray and SketchUp, basically I'm always exploding the image, and then it becomes a material, as you know. There you go, a material. So now when I have the material, I can start to work on the lines. And basically what I do is starting to work with some rectangles, and all I do is to trace some lines, as you can see, and work everything and push-pull everything, and basically model everything, including the buttons. So once I finished with the modeling, all I had to do is just go to V-Ray and add some reflection to several materials. I didn't add so many materials to this model because it's already an image-based one. So all I had to do is just replacing this surface, but everything else was like with some kind of a reflection map, like you do over there with the reflection map, and then lowering a bit the glossiness, and that's it. I mean, that's it. That was all about doing a model of a built-in microwave, and it looks like this when you finally finish with. So this is something that looks like this. I'll go ahead and make you a monochrome overview. So this is how it looks like, and this is how I modeled it. I was modeling everything from the buttons to the when you see the hours and the buttons and the handle, and everything was like modeled exactly as the picture says, and the picture was part of the model itself. Okay. And another thing that I did here is to get the Electrolux actual logo, which I was converted with Illustrator and make it the DWG drawing, and then I made it here as a full logo display in 3D, which was quite helpful because in a distance of, I mean, 1 meter, 2 meter away from the oven, it still looks good. The one thing that I would have done to this microwave is to make every details, to model the details inside the microwave itself, and like I did here. And sometimes I just love to put something inside, like an Omni light, in a very yellowish way to show something that is being cooked inside. So anyway, I want to show you the render that I made to this kitchen scene. So in this kitchen scene, the final render looks like this. Okay, you can see that by placing a reflection map onto the surface and maybe replace some kind of a material here and there, you can really get good results out of, you know, an image that you downloaded from the web, and it's there. I mean, look at it. It looks quite well, and you know, it's also precise. I mean, you took basically the details from a real world appliance, so you have also certainty in this kind of you know, you can basically design and plan your kitchen and have certainty over electrical appliances which have known dimensions, this including this fridge, which has been made in specific dimensions as well. So also those stoves, induction stoves, were as easy as possible. As you can imagine, it's an image, and that's it. I mean, and it looks amazing in rendering. So what is my giveaway for this tip for now? So I would prefer that you would practice yourself with modeling and not go to the easy part where you just download things from the 3D warehouse. So in later on, I will give you this document for you to, and you have the link to download the model that I did. It's on the 3D warehouse and it's available for everybody. So moving on to the next tip. The next tip is quite important and it relates to this scene. If you can see, we have tons of projects all over the year, and we essentially jump from project to project. And so every project, I see it as a library of stuff. So in every project that I do, I can show you a live one. I have a 3D folder, and in this folder, I have this structure of folder. So what I have here is a model, which is this model itself, and SKB, as you know, SKB SketchUp backup file, and I have those folders that holds different aspects of the project. So let's start and go through everything real quick, so we can learn how I structure my project in a very specific way. So I got an HDRI where I keep all my HDRI stuff which relates to the dome light of the project. I got some images. Images are those kind of stuff that you place outside the window to make some kind of a view. So those are images. This image was taken to be as part of a screensaver for for 3 monitors in the model. So this is my images folder. The folder materials, I'll get to it in later on in this webinar, but this holds all the materials that are being used in the model, and I will show you how to export all the materials. This is one of the most prestigious and most important folder. It holds all the models that I used in the final render, but not only all the models that are being used, but a catalog of stuff that I downloaded from the 3D warehouse. Some models are being used in the model, and some were like deleted, but essentially I got here for myself Scandinavian folder that has so many models that I can just, in the next project I have, I can just go and pick models that I already, rendered with V-Ray, with reflection maps, and everything is, totally ready. And all I need is just to use those models once again. And so every project is a library. I got an old folder to keep all of my old models. As you can see, I'm saving a lot of models during the design process, because you never know what will happen in the near future. You can, stuff happen. So I keep a lot of models as save as. As you can see, I reached 50 versions of this model. The next folder is the one that I truly love the most. It's the renders folder. And in the renders folders, I keep all of the renders. I mean, from the very beginning. I mean, when I will show you some of the first render that I did, and you can see that it's a process. It's the design process. It's something that you're doing and you're making progress with. So it's good to have some kind of a log or something that you keep in order to keep all of your renders. But this project was very actually, it's my apartment, so every render that was okay by me, I mean, I took it to a post-production folder, and then I worked it out with Photoshop to make some tweaks and gradients and stuff. As you can see here, I added some gradient, some bluish gradient that is being screened by the window, and then it blends with the with the warmer parts of the apartment. So also I got this this like I don't know. I just wanted to fool around with the image, and I added some smoke. And it's all been done in Photoshop because this atmospheric effect is hard to reach with V-Ray. So anyway, I got a post folder inside the renders folder, and this is where I keep all the folders and also the channels. All right, let's move on. Sketch stuff doesn't really has a significance. A textures folder, which I hold all the textures that I download from the internet, and a VFB history. If you don't work with history, you should. And the VR options. Every once in a while, I keep a file that holds every options of the model that I can easily load and render. All right. So I'm giving you an overview of the aspects of one project. You can just create an empty folder and follow my lead in this folder structure, which I truly recommend to work with. It will be worthwhile in the long run, essentially. So the next tip, number 3, we are still on the technical tips, is that, all right, you finished your model, you have done so much work, you've done so much work on your model, and everything was well designed. So now it's time to render 360 panorama, and it's such an easy way, because once you get one render that you are okay with. By the way, this is the image that I was talking about later in the previous part. Okay, so once you're happy with some kind of a render that you did, you can basically just hit the 360 panorama and render your panoramas and upload it and send it to your customers. This is how it looks like after rendering. And this is easily achieved because, once everything is balanced, the camera, the lights, the materials, you can go ahead and go to the camera tab and just change the type of the camera from standard to spherical panorama. Now, you will note that in the output it was changed and locked the aspect ratio of 2:1. This is because all of the images that are being rendered as panorama needed to be in this kind of aspect ratio. So my recommendation to render is something like 5,000 or 6,000. As you can see, when I'm rendering 6,000, the height factor is being set accordingly. So once I get myself the panorama, all I need is to save a JPEG, not a PNG and not a TIFF, a JPEG image, and then all I have to do is just upload it. I recommend to use RoundMe as a platform to place your 3D panoramas, and this is how it looks like. Really cool. All right. So here you can see the appliances. This is like an old render, but you can see that you have one point that you can reach and look everywhere in the render, and this is quite helpful when you get to speak with people about your project and you would like to have them look at your project from everywhere, every side, every angle, every corner. So being able to send a fully panorama view, it's just great because everybody has like their smartphones and they can use the gyro and everything looks awesome. You can also, if you have a VR headset, you can really enter the space with the headset. So this is also quite cool example. So I recommend RoundMe, and you can have the link to this panorama and to the RoundMe website in the document. All right. Another thing that I did in this project is to set my layers as light switches. And this is very cool because once I have designed a design of all of the, you can see a lot of light fixtures. You can see that there are a lot of places that emitting lights. Not only the suspended lamps, but also some. Just a second. Let's see. Hide V-Ray widgets. There you go. All right. So I got some rectangle lights that emit lights from the gypsum ceiling and everything. So I got tons of light sources, which I want to present to people that are helping me plan the project. So what I did is to render every part of the lights. In this particular project, all I had to do is just turn on and off the lights that I wanted by clicking on the icon near the light itself, which I gave a name. I named every light because I want to control the lights and not having some number or anything. So once I got this order, I could easily control the lights and then make some kind of sequence. Let me show you the what I did. So in the renders folder, I got a switches folder, and in this folder I did this trick. It's a GIF image, and it shows the best how the space is going to be lit. It's going to be bright. All right. Got another example over here, which I did from another angle. Just a second. Nope, not working. All right. Okay. So another example of showing how many lights do you have and how they are affecting the atmosphere of the space, of the interior space. And believe me, it's easy to explain how the space works to anybody who, the contractor and the guy who does the electrics. And this is so much easy to explain and save so much time, especially if you are on the site of the construction. So this is another great tip that it's just there. All you have to do is set your light as layers or anything you would like, anything else you would like to do. Okay, let's move on to another thing that I did on the previous version of my book, and it was involved the V-Ray toon material. As you can see, the V-Ray toon material allows us to create what SketchUp naturally creates for us. It's the line that of contour around components and everything basically. When we go to view, edge, style, profile, so those kind of lines that contour lines are being also rendered. As you can see, when we render something that has plain lines and we don't do anything to the material, so V-Ray renders only the faces and we don't see the lines. And this is good for realism, but it's not good when we have so many details. So let me show you just a second what I mean. All right. Okay, so I had this model of a wooden craftsman. It's like you have so many pieces of wood and you just assemble your house. Just a second, it will be loaded in a few. Let me show you the final product. So this is the image that was rendered after the toon effect, and this is the before and after of the toon effect itself. When you can see that clearly, before the render, before the toon effect, we had here, look at this, so many details that are being lost if we weren't applying the toon effect. See how many details there are in this model, and if we render it, all of those lines would be basically diminished or disappear. And you know that if you want to add those kind of separations between those parts, so one version of a solution is to offset like really tiny bits and then push pull, but this is a lot of work. And what I happen to find here, the toon effect, very helpful, that all you have to do is to get the material that you did. This is the material called named wood 2. So what we need to do is to create a toon material. All right, so just a second. So right now the wood 2 is without the toon material. It doesn't show the contour lines and the details. So what we need to do is to create a toon material, and in the toon material we need to expand the parameters, and then on the base material we need to choose the wood 2. And in this, with the toon material, we need to paint the same geometry that we need, right? So we need to paint the geometry, and look at this. Look at this. The texture that was applied to the geometry is called a texture help. Just a second. Texture helper. V-Ray texture helper, and it allows us to examine what is the size of the texture that we want in order for it to show correctly. So now it's very small. You can see that the texture, this texture is being actually this seamless texture is being deployed on one square, which is very small. So all we have to do is to sample the material and then edit and add to this tiling and make it bigger, like I don't know, 10 centimeters. And all we have to do is just hit the render button and we are okay. One thing that I know for now, that the V-Ray tool material does not work with GPU rendering. I might wrong, but this is due to now. So we can see that on the left part, on the structure without the roof, we don't have a tool material. We don't see the details. In the right part, the actual roof, the house, if we can call it like this, we have the toon material effect, which kind of reflects a CNC cutting machine that cutting the wood and leaves like a small black cut. So this is the effect we looked for, and it looks nice. And this is a nice way to get the lines back from SketchUp, which is kind of nice when you look at the joint. So it's kind of nice to bring back some of the SketchUp lines, and I call it, it's just a joyful act of graphics. So moving on to another tip that I also find it very useful and it's to place 3 lines in a distant place from the camera view and have some kind of a, just a second. Let me open the model. All right. And basically, when we have a tree map, which is quite big in terms of resolution, we can rely on it to be on when it's in far distant from the camera position, we can count on it to be as a good background image for our renders. It fulfills the background with trees and leaves, and I find it very useful. This is the model that I placed the tree lines, and what I did here is just to place the tree lines, and I used the fog elements. So once I use the fog, this is how it looks like from all angles. So when I choose any angle in the model, I can get the very distant light, the very distant tree line, and then the render looks like, again, a folder full of rendering. So it looks like this when you add the atmospheric effect. So we can see that in the far away, you can see the tree lines after the 3D actual trees, which I used here to represent the forest. So it was easy for me to avoid parts that you can see the HDRI in the background, which wasn't so good for me. And essentially, the tree line works better in this particular image. Yeah. So tree lines are easy to get from the web. All you have to do is just search for tree lines, and you can add the word PNG because we want the sky to be opaque. We want the translucency up there. So there you have it. I can also recommend a tree line of a guy called Levi, who is giving tree lines on Patreon. And I think this one, no. Okay, I will try to seek it out and update the document with the tree lines of Levi, and you can simply contribute to the guy and get his tree lines, which are very good ones. All right, cool. Now it's a good stop to make an announcement. If you have any questions for me, anything you would like to ask, just write it on the chat platform, and I will at the end of the webinar will answer every question you have. All right, moving on. Okay, so in this example, technical tip number 7, I show you pool water. So one common mistake that I see in so many people that are rendering pool water is that people are rendering pool water with waves where there isn't anybody in the water, or it doesn't have any current or stream or anything, or some kind of a, like a waterfall or anything. So one thing that I wanted to show you is that when a water pool is being stand still, the water aren't being interrupted by any kind of activity, the water are simply flat, and you can just look it up on Google images and photos and try to find examples. But if you see a swimming pool and you have somebody swimming in it or some kind of an activity, it's always wavy. So the one giveaway that I want to give you for now is that you can really pay attention to this, because this is really makes the project looks realistic. Because at night when you have a render, just a second, I want to show you the renders of this particular project. So the pool noise. So what I did here was very, very, very simple. All I had to do is just add a reflection map to the surface of the water, and that's it. Yeah, Just a second, I want to show you the render that I did. I also made some clay renders to this model in order to see how it looks in this kind of way of clay rendering, you know, that everything is being balanced between the lights and everything. I don't find this method very helpful because, you know, when you're finished with the clay model, you have to texture everything. And if you have, you know, dark areas or very bright areas, so the clay render doesn't mean it can really help you with the design process, but it's a cool image. This is how it looks from this side, and this is how it looks from the entrance. Okay, anyway, I want to show you the renders of the batches. Okay, this is how it looks. Just a second. Yeah. So if you look up close, we can see that the swimming pool is being rendered like a mirror, right? It's it looks like a mirror, and it's fine by me because it has no current. But if it's something, if something moves in the water, or it has some kind of a current, you can add a bump map to the water and have it with some kind of an activity inside the water. Just a second, I will show you the. All right, this is with the bump map. So all I had to do is add a bump map. Just a second. All I had to do to get from this result to this one is to add a bump map to the material itself, and V-Ray does the rest. All right, cool. All right. Let's close some stuff. Okay, moving on. The next thing that I want to show you is from the same project. Technical tip number 8 is basically working with grass. So it kind of have some kind of a similarity to the other tip that I mentioned. It also I'm also using noise map in order to make the grass look variant. You know, when you have some kind of a variancy between the uniqueness of the grass when it looks like not realistic as it can be. Sorry, I forgot the exact word, but I think you can understand what I mean. So this is the grass. This is the grass. As you can see, I'm just gonna eliminate everything. Just a second. So this surface became the grass surface, everything that you can see here. And what I did, let's see the material itself. After the blue, I'm sorry, out of the gates, when you use the V-Ray fur, it's very easy to work with the grass of the material itself, the grass of V-Ray. So this is the fur that I'm referring to. So look what I did. What I did here is to create the same fur as the default one, only I have added a density map and a length map, which I used a bump map. I'm sorry, a noise map. So what I did is to add some noise, which you can see here the parameters that I added. The same goes to the length, and basically what the density map is instructing the V-Ray fur is where it's white to make it more dense, and where it's darker to make it less dense. So this is what gives us the final solution that looks like more organically. So it looks like this. So you can see also from this example that I'm showing you something that I rendered long time ago in the history. So if I wasn't saving my renders in the history, I wasn't being able to load it from here. So here you can see the parts where the grass was affected by the noise map, and where you can see the noise were darker. It made both of the grass, the density and the length, to be shorter and less dense. So it looks like this, and I was happy with the result. And moving on. Later on, I will share with you the exact details of what I've used in this material over there. Okay, moving on. Oh, by the way, on the last render that I showed you, this one, here I used the same method, but in a kind of a different way. On this scene, where you can see there are some surface that has snow, and there are surface that has green vegetation. So when there is snow, there is no vegetation. So what I did in Photoshop, I just inverted those areas where there were grass to darker areas. And then when I implemented in the grass surface, so instead of using a noise map in the density map, I just use the map that I prepared in Photoshop. So this map tells V-Ray not to grow grass over the darker areas, and that means that in the final result you can see that everywhere there were green, it's growing this grass, and everywhere that there was snow, it doesn't, and it looks like this. And here you can see also here that you have some places that aren't growing grass. So this is also an example of how to use maps of V-Ray. Some maps are built into V-Ray, and some maps are being prepared by us in Photoshop or any other software. So those kind of stuff that you can work with when you create your renders. All right, moving on to tip number 9. Actually, I see that we're going to not to cover all the tips. I just want to move on very quick on the technical tips, and I want to reach the artistic tips and the creative ones. So in this technical tip, I want to present to you that in this image, just a second. Sometimes it's better to use 2D images, which are very high quality ones in a TIFF format or PNG, and to place them as a component in the model and have everything. You can see the reflection on the marble of the island, and this is hard to reach results if we, let's say, composing those two characters in post-production mode. So what my giveaway for now is to use very high quality pictures and have them rendered. Just a second, let me show you. Have them rendered in the render itself and get the final result. You can see every render has to have a cat inside. So we can see the reflection on the marble, and from other angles, it also works great. To achieve this reflection on the marble can be quite difficult for anybody who doesn't know Photoshop skills. So anyway, moving on to a very powerful tip that I want everybody here to know, and it's so important that I save the spot for this. So how do we backup and sort over all of our materials in one action? So what V-Ray allows us today, when we receive, let's say, I'm just opening, launching a project that I received yesterday from a friend. When we receive a project from a friend and we try to render it, sometimes we get some kind of artifact. Some textures are being black, some stuff are being messed up in the render itself. So V-Ray doesn't relate the textures. That's okay. The textures in the model. So what we need to do is to check that all of the file paths from the assets that V-Ray uses, like HDR, like all the files basically, are being being correctly configured. So what we do is to go to extensions, and then we go to V-Ray and to the file path editor. In the file path editor, we can see all of the assets that V-Ray is using in this scene. Just a second, okay. Now we see a list of green, yellow, and red indications on several stuff that are in the model. So we can see that most of the assets are images. You might see some HDRIs and IESs files, but there is one way to just eliminate those kind of indication by just going to group and point none. All we need to do is just mark all the materials. I'm clicking the first one and then shift and clicking the last one, and hit archive and repath. By clicking archive and repath, we can just go ahead and create a material folder and save all of the files in the material folder. You can see that some of the materials, the red ones, are not shown because they are not found. We need to find them in the manual way, and all of the assets that were yellowish, now they are green. And we have saved just a second, we've saved all of our materials in one folder, which is great, because if you want to take a look at this, all of the materials are right here. So if you want to go back to some kind of a material, we want to back up everything, and this is a good way of backing up, like in different files, and everything is all of the file paths are correctly configured. Another thing that I would have done is to, when I want to save a project or send it to a friend, or just have a backup in my computer, is go to extensions, V-Ray, pack projects. So after we done the corrections of the paths in the path editor, we can now safely pack a project and put it aside in a zip folder or a RAR folder, and it holds everything: IESs, HDRIs, all of these materials and everything. So this is one of the most important tips that I can give you. All right, use high quality models. Let's move on. All right, moving on. Let's do it really quick. Okay, so we are moving on to our more artistic tips. The artistic tips are basically what I think can be very worthwhile, like using an HDRI image to cover as much as the render as a background. And this example were made in Fabio Palvelli's. If you know Fabio, one of his contests actually was the first one, the challenges. So the Lancia model were the context was that Fabio distributed this model that he has done in Cinema 4D, and what I did is to just a second, let me open the model. what I did is to use transmuter to import the model and simplify it because it has tons of polygons. And what I did is to use one HDRI, only one, in order to achieve this result. Okay, this result. So what you see here, it's the model and nothing else, just a dome light with an HDRI. And what I did here is try to mimic a model of the Lancia in an artist workshop. And this is all there is in the render itself. I mean, what you see here is just a camera pointing the model, and all I had to do is just find the position in the render. So what I had to do here is just take the dome light, place the dome light in the picture, in the image, and then use some kind of an HDRI that I get from HDRI Haven. If you don't familiar with this website, so you must be, because HDRI Haven is one of the most great resources for HDRIs, and I downloaded this HDRI, which looks like a 360 panorama, as you can see easily. So I placed the Lancia over here on this desk, and you can see that we see on the HDR only very small part of the image. We see only this part of the image, and that's it. And this is how the nature of dome light and HDRI works. So what I did is to place an HDRI, a dome light in the model, and then all I had to do is just placing the HDRI in the dome light, set it as a sphere, and use adaptive mode and use transform, and that's it. All I had to do is just render, finding the place that I want to place the let's go and let's try to render CPU and interactive mode without denoiser for now, and let's use 1000 pixels and hit render. So all I had to do is just find the right position in order to put or to place the model in the right place in terms of the HDRI, and then hit the render with 3000 pixels final render production. And what I used here is to export the model with several channels. Just a second. Let's this. All right, here we go. So what you can see here is that I'm working the model out with the HDRIs. You can see I can place the model in a different views. I can place it on the ground. I can place it on the wherever I want. The one thing that I did after that I rendered this model is to export a lot of channels, so I can work with Photoshop and basically make this final result where I can put some shadows underneath the Lancia. That because I exported this PNG image, which is only the model itself. So anyway, the basic idea is to take the HDRI and make it to actually control the scene, the whole scene. So this was quite a nice experiment for me. Let's move on to the next artistic tips. All right. So this restaurant was made by myself without any intention to, and without any client. This is quite an amazing story, because a friend told me that he called me like, Moshe, I need some kind of an interior space. Just give me some kind of an SKP file with an interior space, well lit, and I'll take it from there. And so I made him this model, right? I started with this view, empty space, just a parquet floor and some kind of a light under the ceiling, and that's it. And then I said to myself, well, I can take this further on. So I started to place some tables and chairs, and I built the air conditioning, and then it was like, you know, just swept me out of my feet, and then I just found myself rendering a whole restaurant. So I called it a read and talk restaurant because, you know, everybody is on their cell phones, and this restaurant, you need to put your cell phone in the entrance, and you cannot communicate with any device, technological device. You have to communicate with people or read. So I called it a read and talk restaurant. And one thing that I want to mention is that when I was scouting for those kind of a DOF shots, I took a decision to go to the upper part of the render and shoot downwards. And this is something that I'm not doing in a regular basis, but in this example, I was like blown away from the final result. And what I'm trying to what's my giveaway here is that once I had this up and down shots, it was quite astonishing to reveal what a model, what is, you know, this is like boring and this is like more interesting. And it was kind of revealed with the V-Ray DOF feature. So I was like scouting for like a good view, and I was doing some interactive mode. During this interactive mode, I was looking for those kind of shots, and it was with the DOF, the camera DOF. I just want to show you how do I make the DOF effect. All you have to do is to go to settings, to camera, and then go to the depth of field and turn on. And all you have to do is just choose the point that you want to be. Let's see. Let's pinpoint this plant. And all you have to do, let's make it more visible. And let's go ahead and render. I have a 1080 Ti GPU, so rendering with both CPU and GPU. So what you see here is that I took a decision. Oh, it with override materials. Material override. Let's turn off the material override. And let's go to camera and set EV10. All right. Well, this model isn't quite good because you see that there are a lot of artifacts that happening in this model. No, it's not a good example. I'll show it to you in another example. Just a second. Okay, let's move on and see if we have time. I will go back to this the other restaurant model. All right. So seek for those kind of DOFs. By the way, the heart-shaped balloon was downloaded from a model app, which are doing some amazing models. You can see that they are giving some for free, and their models are so premium and so good that that worth a check. So it's also being here on the document. Let's move on. So the number 4 artistic tips that I have to give you, it involves something that I was planning not long time ago. It was an architectural competition. This competition was to create an entrance to a city in Israel. So what I did is to get some kind of a model-shaped model and render it like it was a model. So the decision that I took is to make this model as a small scale. So I took a whole city model and I scaled it to 10% size because it should be in order to achieve those DOFs. Just a second. So hold on. So what I did is to actually get everything smaller, because you have to be reliable when you have to take real world sizes when you go for those kind of models. And I can see so many 3D artists on Facebook and every other platforms that are starting to show those kind of those kind of models that are looking like a wooden crafted models, architectural ones. So this is how it looks like from SketchUp. I actually used Transmuter to convert those trees, and everything that was used in this model was simplified. So you can also see that I use the model and I use the simplification simplification feature of Transmuter, and you can check it out later on. So this is the model, and what I did here is basically I wanted to save time, and what I did is to make a model that I don't have to place the right textures, you know, the real world textures, because it's a model that looks like a model. So what I did is just making some kind of a nice model, and one thing that I had to do is to show the model in now and the future. So what I did is to replace the floor of the model. Just a second, I'm gonna show you what I mean in a sec. All right. So this is how it looks like, and this is how the junction looks today with regular cars and trucks and buses and people. And what I did is just what I need to do to replace the background is to just to move the surface in unknown units. It's 1,000 units, 1,000 centimeters, and then I have the same model with another junction with the old one. Okay, the new one and the old one. So this is like nice way of replacing content and having really quick rendering and really quick results. And this is how it looks like from the ground. In the futuristic view, I've used those rectangle lights. Just let me mark one of them in order for all the components to be shown. All right. So what I use is two rectangle lights, which emits blue light and show the futuristic view of the project. And another thing I want to show you is that when I was working on the project, it was like a couple of months ago, and what happened is the coronavirus started spreading, and I didn't get a chance to get my presentation of this project, which is what you see here. It's in Hebrew, so don't bother to to find out what you see. But anyway, I had this idea to make a some kind of a representation of real world presentation. So I just modeled it really easy, and then it was so sad that I wanted to add some people to the scene, because you know I want somebody to see my project, so I add these two guys. Anyway, this is the project. This project was won second place and is in the first stage, and now hopefully will win first in the second one. All right, moving on. And now we are gonna get creative, because I'm using V-Ray not only for planning architectural competitions or apartments or electrical appliances. I use V-Ray for expressing my art and getting some creative ways of yeah, you know, blowing people away. So the one tip that I want to give you here is that, you know, that when you finish a project and everything is on the right place, the bed and the people and the windows and the doors and the stuff that you populate your model with, don't end your model there. Go ahead and make fun of it. I mean, just make a mess. So what I did here is to just, you know, save as and have everything moved in such a way that it would look like some kind of a vortex or some kind of a storm enters the space. And the one thing that I want to show here is that the woman that is just standing there and looking outside is still standing there, even though the room is in chaos. And another thing that I found a model of a body, which is I put under the bed for extra interest. You don't have to put dead people in your renders, but it just looked nice to have. So anyway, the moment that you deliver your project to the client, just make it Wix, make something artistic out of it, because this is our way to make the real art and something that, you know, people would cherish. Because if you would have seen this render, you would say like, all right, I saw those kind of stuff in the past, yeah, it's okay, but this one really interesting. So for your portfolio, you should do this kind of messes in the model. So moving on to the creative tip number 2, and this relates me to the book that I wrote that I offer to you guys, and for you to buy. And actually, what I did here is to use V-Ray and my knowledge in V-Ray to promote the book. So what I did here is to create a model of the book. And after I designed the graphic, actually this is the next version. But after I designed the envelope of the book, and so it was easy to just make a model of the book and start to render those kind of DOFs. And it was very easy, because it's all you have to do is to make some kind of a studio environment to your render and then render the model. So let's see what I did here in this image that you see right here. So I'm going to show you the model itself. So what you see here basically is the rover, the NASA rover Curiosity, that I think is still hovering space on planet Mars or so. So what essentially I did is to take basically the model that I used to render the conservative renders and have some creative content. So what I did is to get some cool models, such as Lauberg trees and this wooden plane and Curiosity, where you can see it's really detailed model. And this is telescope Hubble. So you might wondering, and also the moonmans and some rocks that I got. So what I try to do is to make some artistic banners for the project, which I can also mark it with. So I did those kind of stuff, and you might wonder, where do I get the models of the moonmans and the Hubble telescope? So one thing that I remembered, that NASA was releasing models to the world. So I got a link for you to download 3D resources from NASA, and all you have to do is to get to the link that I sent you and look for everything that you heard about in NASA, like the Hubble telescope, and you can find 3D models which are very detailed, very nice models, and you can use them in your rendering. I really recommend that you use Transmuter. I also send you a link to the Transmuter, and with the Transmuter to import models and use them in your renderings. So what I did is to basically place, let me show you the actual space. So this is what we called a studio rendering. And studio rendering is just a backdrop. This is my backdrop, which I did with just a cube. Let me show you a model, a cube. And then I used the round corners, a large offset, like 50 or maybe less, and a lot of segments, let's say 36. Nope. Let's say 30. All right. And okay. So this is one way to create a backdrop. Hopefully it doesn't take too long, but all you have to do is just get your corners of the backdrop rounded, so the background doesn't look sharp, and you see the corner of the joint between the wall and the floor. So this is something that that you do, where you can eliminate the background. It looks like this, right? It looks like this. It looks like a very nice gradient background, which is good. All right. So once I get the just a second. Not such a good way to create a backdrop, but what I did in this example, yeah, you can use this. You can also use this lunchbox in order to render your models. All you have to do is to place the model in this location, and you're good to go. So this is essentially what I did here. And the lights that I used are basically those two rectangle lights. Okay, you can really learn from the location of the lights, the size of the lights, and the direction. What I used, and you don't see, is the directionality, right? So you saw the final image. It looks like let's say like this. So you can see there is some kind of a shadow casted on the floor. You can see the textbook itself, and everything looks great. So this is also due to those two lights, but also due to their directionality values. So if I go to and check this rectangle light, you can see that I used an intensity of 3. This one, the left one is intensity of 10. So that means that this light is the primary one, and the other one is the fulfilling light. It's like it's the secondary, less important, but both of them has some kind of a directionality value. As you can see here, that when you use directionality, you basically let the light be more accurate and towards the target. And when you set directionality more and more, you get the lights more projected from the light itself. So in this one, I used 0.7 in order for the light to be very well lit, and this is also get the shadows very very precise. I mean, if you look at the rover in this model, you can see that. Just a second. This is the web version. You can see that I got very good shadows from the wheels, and the model itself is also lit very good, and the rocks are being also reflecting the light. And from the right hand side, I can see that the secondary light but secondary light and light those parts of the render. So this is also an important light. So anyway, this is how I render a studio scene, which I use to help me market the book. And before I showed you the movements, and this is also Lauberg trees, and the Lauberg trees are so good. I mean, just look at them being rendered. This looks like amazing. This is also due to DOFs, because I used the DOF feature in order for me to just a second. Okay, I use the camera DOF, and I pinpoint the book, which is the subject of the render. So this is how I doing my my creative way of doing stuff with V-Ray and expressing myself. This is not the first time that I'm doing product stuff in V-Ray for SketchUp, and I find it very cool to do it in V-Ray for SketchUp. And that's my tip for today. Let's go for the last one. So the last creative tip that I did, it was so long time ago. I think it was like in V-Ray 2.0. And what I did here with this 1970 some car was to basically, what I did is to render each frame. And what I did is to just a second, I will show you the model itself. What I did is to rotate the model just in 1 degree and hit the render. So I drew a line. I drew a line really in the center point of the center of gravity of the car, and I rendered it. And then I stitched all of the images, and then I got this Make Love with V-Ray. Yep, that's it, you guys. And I want to show you another thing. We reached the end of the webinar, so I want you to know that you can have the whole bunch of the whole knowledge information inside my ebook. It's brand new, and you can get it with a 10% discount. So if you click on this link, you can have the book already with the discounted price, and you can buy it straight from Gumroad. And it will be a huge help and support for me, and I hope it will, make you be way better with skill building and brush up your skills when doing some various stuff, which I didn't cover in this webinar. Yeah.
Moshe, can I ask you a question? Can I ask you to share the link in the chat for everybody? So, because a lot of people have asked, they're ready to buy, and so they want the link, and they would like to take advantage of the 10% discount. So.
Absolutely. Oh, okay, so I'm now seeing the chat for the first time. I'm sorry that I wasn't paying attention, because I wanted to be, I want to be precise in the. Okay, just a second. I will share with you the.
Thank you.
The link. There you go. This is with the 10% discount right now on the chat.
Yeah,
and
I see it. Perfect. Guys, you know what to do, or girls.
Yeah, thank you so much for this. Thank you so much everyone for being with me and listen and participating. I'm also going to message you my private profile on Facebook and LinkedIn and everything that we can keep in touch, and you can ask me any questions that you might have. And
Yes, Moshe,
yeah.
this was a priceless presentation and also very entertaining, especially when you talk about dead bodies under the bed. It was a big
Oh
hit.
yeah.
That was a big hit. Um, I want to thank you. We went a little over time, which is great. No complaints here. Everybody was stuck and glued to the screen. Um, and I want you also to remind everybody, because I was asked a lot during the presentation, if this webinar is being recorded. And yes, it will be placed on YouTube as early as this afternoon. And I want to go back to my screen just for a second, so you can get a clear I look at the Novage webpage and find out where you can find both V-Ray, and also we have SketchUp as of yesterday. So feel free to visit us, and Novage is changing the way you can purchase your 3 software. It's a one-stop shop, and there's the best service, all the choices, and it's very easy, and you won't regret it. Thanks again for joining us today. We also have hardware, always good to remind everybody. And if you miss our part of a webinar, if you want to watch it again and share it with other people in the industry, you can find it on our YouTube and Vimeo channel. And that was really a pleasure, Moshe. I really appreciate your expertise, and I'm sure everybody was happy to spend this time with us. I got great feedback. So thanks again
Yeah.
for your time. That was really
Yeah,
appreciated.
I'm truly grateful for inviting me from the other side of the world.
Mhm.
Just one thing, I think I shared the link only with you. So
Oh,
if you can, if
let
you
me know.
can,
Yes, let me know if you received the link, if you can see the link. Otherwise, I will reshare it. Let me share it again with the entire audience.
yeah,
I think I did. I think it's out there. So, in any case, I'll tell you what. If you, for some reason, can't reach the link, you can always email me, barbara@noveg.com, and I will make it available for you. So don't be afraid to contact and reach out. Anything you need, V-Ray or SketchUp. Okay. Have a
cool.
great rest of the day or night. Bye bye, everybody. This was wonderful.
Bye bye, everybody. Thank you so much.